testing. Okay. Oh, there's a message. Okay. How do I respond to this? Hello? Hello? Hey, it's your weekend with me, with Jim. Continued. You can see, hello. So Kirihiko, I got your messages. I'm gonna try just doing it this way first because it's the first to see. Hold on 1 second. I'm getting audio. Where do I want to turn this off here? There we go. Yeah, I don't know how you guys are doing, but I had a chicken dinner last night, and I feel pretty amazing. All right, so I'm gonna try. You're tired, crispy egg rolls tired. Wah wah. Come on, man, suck it up. Anyway, it's 4 a.m. for somebody, so I'm gonna try doing it this way and see how the feed goes. But if it's hard for me to see the person whose work I'm looking at, I might limit it to subs only. I don't know. We'll see how this goes here. Kirihiko and also maybe suggested doing Discord, so the person's work I'm reviewing, I could actually talk to them on the phone. But I'm going to kind of jump around. I basically have set it up so that I've gone to yet another computer. I've got a house full of computers. As you can see, there's family photos on the wall behind me. And this is my Cintiq. And I figured it'd just be easier for me to pull up the emailed files that you guys sent me, pop it onto Photoshop, and then just draw on layers or whatever. So I've got only 3 submissions actually so far. Let's see how many we can get through in an hour. Slow mode is good. Yeah, slow mode is good. We'll see how it goes. So I don't understand. If there's slow mode, that means there's a delay, right? Between when you guys type something in and when I see it. Correct? Glue Man, here come the tears. Oh my gosh, how awesome would it be if I was reviewing your work and I had you put a camera on yourself so I could see the impact of the criticism? No, that would be horrible. That would be horrible. Or very entertaining. I don't know. No, I'm pretty good about critiquing work. I've seen other professionals really just savage some people. I just don't see how that's a benefit to anybody. I think it just makes people very, it hurts people's feelings, of course, but also just kills any future hope that they'll continue with it. That said, I know that even the slightest criticism can really sting, and I've noticed it when I do reviews, portfolio reviews at conventions. As soon as I say one bit of criticism, anything somewhat negative, you can see their eyes kind of shut down. Like inside, you can see the brain kind of just shut down, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. So you have to. It takes a certain kind of personality to take constructive criticism to heart. At first, yes, you will get defensive. That's just the way human behavior is. But you can learn a lot. And my own personal experiences with reviews was that it really is hard to hear criticism about your work because you put your blood and soul, sweat and tears into it, and then to have a reaction where someone doesn't love it as much as you love it is tough to hear. That said, professionals are good people for getting advice from, as opposed to your friends and family, because they'll always be supportive. Or actually other people online. I've noticed online, if you're an inspiring artist, you go to DeviantArt or any of these other art focused sites, you get a lot of people really just very supportive and saying it's great, it's better than the stuff that's being published. A lot of times, I would say 99% of the time, it is untrue. Anyway, so just reading a message. Anyway, so it is untrue. Uh, so the funny thing about people online is that if you are aspiring artists, they're super, super supportive. Once you become a professional, they become super, super negative. So that means you've made it when people don't like what you're doing. Well, that's one way you can look at it. Anyway, because it's always like, oh my God, that last issue of some, that title really just sucked, and that guy doesn't even know how to draw. All right, so I've set it's a different setup. Everything's good. Sound is good. Give me a thumbs up. Michael Demi-Urgis, watching from work with audio off. I will sign language. Being an adult sucks sometimes. Sounds good. Yep. Okay. So I have actually a the fancy mic here, webcam here, Cintiq in front of me. You know what? I'm gonna pull this a little forward so I can get a good angle on it. All right. So if you guys aren't familiar with Cintiqs, they're basically tablets that you can draw straight on. There is a pen that uses an electronic signal, and I don't know, there's some other technical stuff that happens with that. In honor of Batman Metal, all critiques must be metal. All right, so I'm gonna look at some of this art here. Open this up first so I can. Okay, actually, go back. The first one I look at is a guy named Michael. I'm just gonna use first name. He's actually the one that sent me the art first. Okay, I'm gonna pull it into Photoshop. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open up Streamlab as well. I don't have audio on. Okay. But Kira had given me some good advice. I can see recent events here. So I can see that I'm Rich Broke has subscribed. Thank you very much. Very cool. Welcome. Welcome and joining us. Sorry, I'm operating on very little sleep here. All right, so this is, can you see this? This is the first page from Michael here. Michael will tell us, since it signed his name on the top. Try to do this fairly anonymously though, unless you put your name on top of the art. And I actually need another monitor over here too. This is just not ideal. Try to get back to the chat window. Okay, we have 111 people. So thank you guys for joining me. It's this morning, Saturday morning. This is Mr. LBC. Anyone can watch. This is the first review I've done. This is for people that sub at the 25 level. I give them an email address where they can send me their art, and I'll basically review it and try to give you some helpful tips and some feedback directly on your work itself. All right, so if you can see this, first page we got. Let me move this a little like this here. See how that looks. Clark's W Prince. Yeah, I didn't get that email, so I basically did it in the first batch. It was like 6 or 7 people, because people that joined after that would be a later wave. At some point, I will download the people that joined recently, and you'll get an email from me this weekend. Visa Vic. I definitely don't have the guts to have my work shredded to pieces in front of a live audience. Props to these guys. I'm not going to shred anyone's work. Uh, I'll only really kind of focus on, well, you'll see. All right, so here we have the first page. I'm going to actually look through all the pages first. I tried not to like zero in on one little thing. I want to see sort of the whole of the work first. I basically encourage people to send me 3 to 4 pages of work. That's really the most amount that I really need to see. You can kind of gauge it actually off one page, but you know, it's good to see 3 or 4 pages because you can see how comfortable they are with storytelling and drawing different kinds of poses and different kinds of scenes. See, it looks like Michael has decided to draw a Batman story. It looks like it starts with a down shot of Gotham City, then we zoom in on Gotham Bank, then we cut to the interior of the bank, people at the counter. Looks like an employee saying something to a security guard. It's really smart. He basically has here, you can see Michael has put that badge, and that's how I know that that's a security guard. So these are all very little subtle things that are very cool, and they're part of storytelling. Right? I know all these things because hey, this right here, this right here. Oh, let's do this. That right here signifies it's a bank. Very obviously, that there basically signifies it's a security guard. I assume it is. And so he's basically setting the scene. It's a bank in Gotham City. What happens to banks in Gotham City? Well, let's see. Looks like there's an explosion. And he's got this painting, which was very distinct. And so we saw that on page 1. We see it here in page 2. And that basically establishes what we call continuity. Not the continuity you know of in terms of comics, in terms of, oh, Batman is in Gotham this issue, and in Justice League he's on the moon. What's the deal with continuity? This is story continuity, so that we basically can track where we are within this reality that Michael's created. And so we still know we're in the bank, and we know it's that same scene because of the person at the counter and then the painting. And he did a very nice thing where the painting, the explosion rocks the painting, and you see it kind of basically do this, signifying movement and vibration and shock like that. So that's all really strong storytelling. Then we see our Dan DiDio security guard with his gun aimed at a shady silhouette has come through the explosion, the hole created by the explosion. He is panicked. He doesn't look good. He doesn't look good here. That's not a good face. It's kind of like I think how I looked when I was playing PUBG last night, running around. The next one looks like it's a fist, I think, or something. Zoom in here. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think that. Oh, I think it's the creature's face. I'm not sure. So we'll find that out as we keep looking at this. Looks like off screen you see this rope kind of basically goes around that thing and squeezes it. Okay, so it is so basically from the storytelling, the last panel, I see that's Killer Croc or some Killer Croc type creature. So that must mean panel 1, 2, 3, 4 is his fist, and it's about the fist. Okay, I figured it out. The fist has grabbed our hapless security guard's face in panel 4, and the rope is coming around and basically wraps around Killer Croc's forearm. So I figured this out by looking at all the panels and kind of working backwards. And to me, that's an issue with the storytelling. It's not as entirely as clear as you would want it to be, because you want people to basically look at the panel and have it be super clear. So I'll give you some feedback on how I think the angles could have been a little clearer to establish the storytelling that you had in mind. Okay, so that's page 2. Then we go to page 3. And we see Batman leaping through the same hole, knocking down Killer Croc. We presume it's Killer Croc, and this is something we're going to get to later. I know it's Killer Croc because of the textures on the skin, but one of the issues is we never established Killer Croc's face. Like, we saw him as a silhouette, and then we cut right to the guard, and then the hand going over his face. So I think Michael, you missed a step, which is to establish Killer Croc's face after we do the very dramatic silhouette reveal where he comes through the hole in the wall, which is great. That was really cool, but I think you just missed one beat where you basically identify who it is that we're looking at. And then there's panel 2. It looks like there's ropes around his forearm. Not entirely sure what's going on there, but I think it's another thing. If there was a sound effect, I think you're intending like thwip. If there's a thwip on the second panel here, like that. That thwip. And this is where sound effects were really important and can be useful in establishing storytelling and narrative, because then that basically suggests that the rope has gone around his forearm again. Hello, hi Lisa, how are you? It's all right. We have a friend here. She's by.
Wait, where is it?
Huh?
Wait, oh.
It's right here.
I can't, I don't
It's a friend of ours.
thing.
Well, it's delayed.
Oh. Sorry.
It's all right.
You need the quiet on set sign.
I do actually. I'll put on the door.
I'll
Anyway.
make you one in crayon.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay, it's all right. Okay. So that's whip. Important. Then we have then we see that the thwip, that cable has come from the Batmobile. It's got a device in the front that's sent out this cord, and the only thing I would suggest at this point is that cord around Killer Croc's forearm is essentially the same thickness. Hey Mason, what's up? Good. Yeah. I'm doing an art critique, so anyway, so okay, if you could, yeah, I need some privacy. Okay, just keep the door closed. Thanks. Okay, so the cord around his forearm is really like the same thickness and dimensions as the cord that comes from the Batmobile. And I would probably have differentiated the two, maybe made the cord from the Batmobile a different texture, different thickness. Probably made the cord coming from Batman a little thinner to differentiate the two from a storytelling perspective. So then panel 4, we have Killer Croc, and he's got the cord around his forearm, and then Batman sort of sitting on top of him, probably gloating because Batman, he's kind of a jerk. I actually have this whole theory that all these rogues running around Gotham are demented, and because Batman is the ultimate bully. He basically beats them up without really any special abilities, no guns, no superpowers, and he rubs it in their face. He's like, I'm the best at what I do, and even if you're Killer Croc, and then he puts them in an insane asylum where they're all just living in horrible conditions. I don't know. It would drive anyone to go a little mad. So then the third panel, you see Killer Croc in kind of this very classic Spider-Man thing where Batman has left him. There should be a little note here. It's like, do not feed. Look at this wonderful bit of lettering there. Of course, the letter would make that all smaller. So, all right, you get the idea. So that's just my initial sort of looking at the 4 pages. Michael's created a nice little story, a little vignette where Killer Croc has busted into this bank, and Batman saves the day. Zacob 96 story idea for you, Bat Bully. Yeah, think about it. So I had an idea. So actually, I won't share it. I might actually use it in the story. It involves the Joker. Geek Generation has hosted us with 15 viewers. Awesome. Very cool. So is this all making sense? Is Michael, are you out there? Let me see. M. Tellez, are you out there? Let me see. Is this useful? Is this What happened to Dan DiDio, the security guard? I don't know. Isn't that him in the last panel? I'm not sure who that last person is. True Jen, I've been streaming Call of Duty World War II all day. No one's come to watch. Give a small shout out. I'll tell you that. Yeah, it'd be tough to stream in Twitch and not have an audience. So I'm thankful that some of you guys have tuned in on Saturday morning. You know, I think just social media in general, you're always putting yourself out there, and it's always great to get some feedback to kind of keep you going. So all I would say is just hang in there, keep at it. Okay. You had 6 pages. Okay, I saw only 4. Maybe the first 4 you sent me were the ones that were blurry. Let me see. So open up my email address. Yeah, Michael, I only see 4 pages. It says, so there's one email, it says 4 attachments, and then you send a follow-up email saying, sorry, the pics came out blurry. So that's the one I opened up. Unless there were, maybe it was older. Hold on one second. No, that's it. So you should check your outbox and see. 1 second. It's got a little warm in here, so I want to turn on the AC. Okay. Oh, he's saying the story was 6 pages, but he edited it down to 4. Thank you. English is my second language, so didn't quite get that. Art of TK, close to 8 p.m. Central European time in Germany. Happy to catch one of your streams. Danke schön. Danke sehr. How involved am I in the DC talent search? I'm very involved. I work with Bobby Chase and Sarah Miller in looking at the art submissions. Did I miss a joke? Oh, I see. Anyway, all right. So we've established the storytelling. I think there's some things he could have done. So if you go to page 1, you have the scene. I think on page 2. I don't know why these aren't in order. So page 2, right here, I would have figured out a way to put a panel where you see Killer Croc's face. You know, even if it was like this. You know, and then you could have had this, basically this square could have fit into this right here. Sort of Killer Croc, and then the reaction from Dan. And then this panel 1, 2, 3, 4, which would now be panel 5, is problematic because you know, if you noticed, I struggled with kind of figuring out exactly what I was seeing. Was it an alien creature that had this weird kind of asymmetrical design on his face? Because that's what you would think you're seeing. Because usually when you have a close-up of a person's face straight on, the next shot is what they're seeing. It's just generally a storytelling convention. You know, like if you do a close-up of someone's face and you show their eyeball, the next panel is what they're seeing. It's kind of what the reader expects. Or you're doing something where it's a sequence of timed events where you're seeing an object and then you see something attacking that object from the same camera angle, and that's what you're doing, Michael. And so when you look at this, how would I make this a little clearer? Hold on 1 second. I don't know. I think it's really hard to do that from Killer Croc's perspective. It would have to either be like this, Sorry, I make faces when I draw, so I just realized I was doing the. And actually, if you do that, that just means you're getting into it. That you are sort of trying to inhabit the emotional space or mindset of the characters you're drawing. Anyway, all right. So that's one way of doing it. I'm gonna create a layer because that way I can just erase. Really should do this better. Okay. The other way is you could have done a fist like this. Either way, I mean, this is the clearest. It might be the most different in terms of intent because it's such a different angle. If you want to do the straight on effect, I would have gone with the first option. And then the next panel, again, this is all very tricky. It's like, how do you establish a close-up of a forearm? I'm assuming that's a forearm, but we don't know 100% because you're really only seeing from here to here. And in terms of continuity, I would probably have wanted to maybe take this same thing, okay, and, oops, put it over here, okay. Maybe establish that. And then show the rope going like that. And actually have it be in the active present case. I don't know if you guys know anything about grammar. I don't know. What do I know about grammar? But something active present, is that a case? Is anyone a grammatician out there? So meaning it's happening and it's still happening, right? So this thing like goes and we're still seeing it actually going around Killer Croc's forearm, right? Does that make sense? I'm gonna look to the chat channel to see if it's making sense. Spider Freak 818. I don't know. Is he an artist? Present tense. Okay. Product placement with water. How many months now to make your whiteout come out the way it do? I think it took about 15 years of working with whiteout. Is the artist actually in the room? No. He's in the chat. Yeah, it's mtellus1, Vic. Okay, good. All right, so that's clear. And then, because, so I appreciate the challenge that Michael's taken to do this particular angle where we're looking over, kind of down, sort of a God's eye point of view over Killer Croc at the security guard. But the security and the security guard hasn't been damaged enough that he would just sort of fall to the ground unconscious. Like, I think you skipped a step where he's got this fist and maybe it's Killer Croc's hand is like kind of crushing his head, but he's kind of falling forward and his head's kind of falling at kind of a slightly odd angle. So I think I would have posed the guard differently to establish better float. And then I probably also would have put the camera like video game style, like right over Killer Croc's head. So I would have probably gone in a little closer to where he is here. Let me see. I'm gonna go with black here. So I would have used. You've got this space. I'm gonna use it. What am I trying to do? Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna create a composition. Before I even draw anything, I've kind of mentally composed this shot, which is going to be challenging. I'm going to create a triangular composition. And the triangular composition is this. There's an area of interest here, an area of interest here. Okay. And I'm going to create a triangular sort of composition. This is a classic thing to do in any kind of shot, and it will serve you well as you think about ways to compose your drawings. Okay, so I'm going to put Killer Croc's head over here, do his back here. You know what? I like how you didn't have him kind of bleed or go off the panel, so I'm going to keep that going. So I'm going to keep the back here, have that negative space here that you had in yours. Okay, this is a quick way of doing the back, right? You have the spine, and then this kind of V establishes where the shoulder blades go. The next sort of offset here. Because Killer Croc was about to kill this guy, and this rope basically has gone around his forearm, he's probably going to look a little to his left. So I'm going to establish that. All right. Let's see how that looks there. Hey Eric, how are you doing, man? Eric Canetti in the house, as they say. Eric is a good buddy of mine, fantastic artist. You guys should catch his streams too. In fact, I'll probably start hosting his streams on my side as well. Eric is a guy that used to come down to Wildstorm from LA, worked in animation a lot, works in comics, but he's also very knowledgeable, killer style. You should check out his feed, or his stream. Okay. Inverted V. All right, so now we got this. So now Killer Croc's kind of looking off to the side here. Put in that one arm. All right, there's that shoulder muscle, tricep down here. Because these things are in perspective, right? I'm gonna do some foreshortening where this muscle mass is over this bicep section, bicep tricep section, elbow down here, forearm here. And because he had his hand on the guard's head, I'm gonna keep it somewhat closed or somewhat open still, as opposed to a clenched fist, because I want to establish just that a little bit of time has passed between when he grabbed this guard's head. Sorry, I'm just realizing this camera's at an angle. And when the rope has kind of gone over his forehead. Okay, does that make sense? And if you notice, I'm just Greeking in the shapes for even greater kind of dramatic effect. You could make Killer Croc's head kind of lean in even further than where it was. I could have just copied it and dragged it over, but I don't do too much stuff in this antique. So if you can already see that I've basically moved it over more. For extra points, we're going to tilt the head and be looking as if the camera is over here, looking up in the inside, so you will see the upper part of the mouth. right? So you've got the body going forward and the head kind of rotating, looking back up here. So if you drew through, you would see the underside of the chin there. So there's more lean into that back. And see where the pants kind of, these kind of shapes here that basically outline costumes, and that's why like superheroes have costumes. I think for the most part, they're just, a lot of them are just like nude figures with lines that basically help create three-dimensionality and create form, right? So when you put, even this rope before was kind of flat, it basically wrapped around the forearm, flattening the image. I would actually have it go like this, where it's forming itself on the contour of the forearm, helping sell this three-dimensionality that we're trying to create, this illusion of three-dimensionality. Maybe one leg's kind of going forward here, so we have that kind of. Okay. So this is kind of, I mean, this is how I would start. I would basically break it down in these kind of simple shapes. What is Kira schooling Renee on? Okay, what do we have here? Okay. Kira, when you went into Streamlab and adjusted it, I don't know if I'm not seeing. I saw a 5-minute recent event where also Acelerado, that's an easy word to say, Acelerado has followed. That was 5 minutes ago, but I see in chat that someone subbed at 25. That generally showed up in the recent events history log, so I don't know if something was changed. Okay. Hey, Kanger Banger. Welcome. Okay. Which direction is the rope coming from? Well, that's what we're going to establish. It's coming from over here. So there's the rope. And then I would even have like the rest of the rope, or the kind of dangling off to the side, right? We're basically establishing that that rope is that rope, right? So here's the area of interest, the body mass here, and so basically that triangular sort of design I was going for. There's one, so we're gonna figure out what goes over here, and that's gonna be where our security guard is. He's basically had his head gripped by this hulking, super strong creature, and so he's either gonna grasp his head because it hurts so much, or he's gonna be in shock, or he's gonna be in the process of passing out. I would do something short of him fully passed out on the floor, because if he's passed out on the floor, a lot more time has kind of happened between the second to last panel and the last panel. Whereas if he's in the process of passing out, or if he's just in the reaction mode after he's been gripped by this hand, we're establishing that this just happened, that this stuff is happening very, very quickly. Okay, so I'm thinking something like this. I'm trying to clear him in terms of tangents. The idea of tangents is that things should fully overlap. You should never have, for example, a building that goes up like this and then have a moon that is right there on top of it, right? It basically pulls the moon, which is in the far background, to the foreground, and it creates this weird thing where it's like a tree growing out of a person's head in a photograph if you shoot it just right. If you shoot a photograph of a person and they're standing in front of a tree, you can make it look like the tree's coming out of their head, and that's a bad tangent. You basically offset the two, like that. It's just as bad, like that. Now it looks like there's a foreground and a background, and you help create some sense of actual depth in a 2D drawing. So I'm trying to put this security guard and offset him against Killer Croc's forearm so that they don't line up just correctly where, or incorrectly where the head is like right here, you know, and the body is kind of hidden like that. So so I've got him over here. I'm gonna go with the fact that his head has just been squished like a gummy bear, and it really hurts. And so he's gonna have his hands on his own head like this. All right. And a lot of times I would just take black shapes and put them on the underside of the palms. It's a great way of establishing the change in angle of a forearm to a wrist that's basically cocked like that. That the light would hit here, you would see the fingers, and then this part of the hand would be in a black shadow, and then this is not. And so you can see that it creates kind of this zigzaggy shape, right? This being fingers here, the back of the palm, the hand, and then the forearm right here. Okay, and then maybe even, rather than fully being on his knees, I even have maybe one leg go like this, like he's in the process of falling down that way. Because if I don't have that leg there, it looks like he's fully stabilized and has been knocked out in PUBG, and he's basically waiting for his team to revive him. So we're basically gonna put that leg here, so it's kind of like he's falling over, and he's gonna fall over to the side. Now he had all this kind of debris and background, and so I applaud Michael in trying to create this sense of place, environment, and detail by putting all that in there. But even with debris and background, you should really think about all these shapes as a way to sort of compose your shots, to better compose your actual illustration, right? So unlike a movie where props and things are kind of laid about artistically or just by happenstance, everything that's on a page comes from here and has to intentionally come from your hand. So don't put any line down that you don't have a reason or a rationale for putting down. So even when I do a lot of cross-hatching, it's either for texture or for uplighting effect, or to just create some gray values. So even if there's debris, I try to organize it in a way so that we, again, are focusing on this triangular composition that we have. And so I want people to look here, and I want people to look here, and I want people to look at this. Those three elements are the most important parts of that panel. So my debris is gonna sort of subtly suggest itself, kind of point towards these things. They're arrows. They're angular arrow shapes. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And they are pointing and creating subtle visual clues to look in the areas I want you to look. So I tend to put the debris first, and then place the shadows after. Okay. Okay. So once I've and there still might be smoke that is coming up because of the aftermath of the explosion. Okay, so once I have that, I start then refining the illustration, and I think of ways to set up light sources to create shadows, and use the shadows to help, again, separate the foreground, which is Killer Croc, from the medium ground, which is the guard, from the background, and also just create as interesting of a drawing and the most dramatic kind of scene possible. Okay. Does DC have a workshop for upcoming artists? Yeah, we have a talent development program. Artists submit their work through an online web portal, and we select about 8 to 10 different artists from all around the world. We fly them into Burbank, and we basically give them training for a week. But these are people that are typically either just published or on the verge of being published. They're just super close to being pros or already kind of pros, and they get feedback from editors and other artists, veteran artists, colorists, writers. It's a really great program, and we're happy to do it. Unfortunately, it's very limited, but that's very different from what I'm doing here, which is just spending some time Saturday morning talking about art. Okay. Pointing debris, who would have thought? Well, if you look at like a lot of my stuff, if you look at the debris, not every piece is going to point to the area of interest, but it's super important. It creates perspective lines, it creates subliminal, sort of subconscious cues of where the eye should go. Okay, let's see, checking with Michael. He's responding to someone, I made it up. Oh, my guess is, did you find the story or script? Yeah, I can tell that Michael just made it up. And this is really all you need. You don't need to have, like, you're not going to create a submission that's going to be the defining Commissioner Gordon Batman story or the true origin of Killer Croc. We're not really looking for that. And frankly, no beginner is going to be given a story like that or be able to produce something really of that quality. It's something that you get later on. If you're trying to become a comic book artist, the first and foremost thing you want to do is establish that you can tell a story and that you know how to draw. The story is secondary to that, meaning the actual content of the story. So pick 3 or 4 pages of sequential action, show people in regular clothes, show superheroes, show background, show debris, show that you know how to move the camera around. Those are the things that you have to really hit. So when I drew my first submissions, I just made up stuff just like this, honestly. That's really all you need. So I wouldn't waste any time looking for professional scripts online and really worrying about that. Look, when I first started doing submissions, I was like hyper focused on the width of the gutter, the gutters, the spaces between the panels. I thought that was super critical. And I'll tell you right now, as a professional, I used to measure this stuff out. As a professional, I just line it out. I don't even think about it. If they're close to each other, that's all I care about. And they tend to be fairly consistent. You get good at it. But what the point is, these are inconsequential things that the mind focuses on, which are unimportant to the actual submission itself. That said, I would probably not have done these irregular panel shapes. There's really no need to have a big panel and a small panel right next to each other. I think you could have done this in just a 4-tier page, and I would actually go super vanilla on the layouts, because the less things you give an editor to quibble about, the better it's going to go for you. Just do something really dry, vanilla, 5-6 panels a page, three tiers. You want them to focus on what's inside the panels and the storytelling itself, and don't try to be uber fancy with it. It's your first submission. Just get in the door, get into the business, and you'll learn a lot more when you're given assignments. You'll learn essentially on the job. All right, so I'm going to go back to this shot here. I've got Killer Croc. He's pissed off. I'm thinking the light source is going to be off here because from that direction. Because when Killer Croc came through, he was backlit, so the light source has to be there. So that informs a bunch of things here. So I'm going to basically drop shadow of this arm across this body. Maybe the forearm here. That head against. Actually, I could probably go completely black with that. Like here. That was the foot, but I think I'm gonna put the foot here. Something like that. Maybe that doesn't look like a foot. Anyway, so you got that. Now I'm gonna put some shadows again on the undersides of the areas away from the lighting. And you can do it very, very quickly like this. And the idea is that once you have these shadows in, you kind of squint at the page. Maybe that's why I squint so much when I draw. You squint at the page and you can see, if you can see clearly what the panel's about just by kind of squinting at it and kind of getting the basic broad gist of it. Okay. And then I realized that Killer Croc here has, I don't know, he's got some weird stuff going on with his back. And so we can create some. And then you go in and do the rendering and all that other stuff. That's just time consuming. Alright, I think this is where the challenge is. All the rest is just it's style and technique. This is about storytelling and composition and drawing, right? And then I have to figure out, okay, are there shadows on the ground? Maybe I organize them in a way like this to kind of almost act as like a frame, like a border for what we're seeing. Not in a rectangular shape, but kind of this oddly constructed frame of shadows. Okay. And then, if you want to be super cool, you give a note to your colorist. Say, hey, can we do something like, whoops, let's go multiply. This. It's not super clear, but essentially it's a cast shadow of Batman. If you can see that back here. I'll cheat and make it super clear to you guys. All right. Does that make sense? It does to me, but clean up these shadows here. Go back to the feed here. Wow, you have people to color for you. Must be nice to be famous. Well, they do get paid to color, so I wish they were doing it because they were wanting to hang out with some cool people, but they actually do it for a job, so I don't know. You could do it too, just hire them. This shadow just kind of literally foreshadows the arrival of Batman. It's a cool visual trick. Right. So we got that. And then if you turn off the original layer here, you can see what I've created here. Oops, that was not what I wanted to do. There we go. Put that there. And we'll fill this with all that. just to do this. There we go. Okay. If I were working digitally, which I don't, I just draw on paper. This is what I would start with, and then I would create another layer and basically ink over this. All right. So I'd probably take that layer I just created, reduce the opacity to something like that. Go here. Okay, then we'll go to this layer, and I would basically use a custom nib, which I don't have access to. I don't use any of that stuff. And then I would start inking. Maybe ink with my mouth closed. I don't know about this webcam thing. I could just be this disembodied voice. Art was not meant to be observed by watching the artist's face. I don't know. So you get the gist of it. You can use basically the underdrawing, the basic structural components that I put down as the basis for your final drawing if you work digitally. Okay. Don't think anyone is looking at your face. We're looking at the awesome. Thank you. Thank you for not looking at my face. Okay. Don't deprive us of your radiance. Use the Kappa emote, so now I kind of question your sincerity. All right. How many people are waiting for a review? Like no, there's like there are 10. If you're concerned about it, I wouldn't subscribe. Fatalist. He says, how many people are waiting for a review? Like, are there 100 other people? If I subscribe, is it possible a whole year goes by without getting a review? Honestly, I would not do it if you're concerned about money in that sense. I don't want to feel the pressure that I have to get the people by a certain date. I feel that honestly, you guys can learn as much by watching a review of someone else's work, because a lot of when you see a lot of people's work over time, you realize there's a lot of very thanks, Crispy. Getting at my the feelings of insecurity. You notice a lot of aspiring artists make the same kind of, not mistakes, but kind of the same kind of blind spots, and so you can learn just as much, honestly, and you don't have to pay anything. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you feel like, oh, I'll pay the money because maybe they'll give me my shot to getting a job, that's it's so easy, I think, if you have really good stuff, to get work these days because of the power of the internet and the ability to email people and put if your stuff is good and it's on Instagram, people will find it. So it's not really an issue of people not seeing your work. It's the work being good enough to get hired. So yeah, anyway. All right, so Michael, and honestly, I don't know if I'm going to just knock them off sequentially one after the other. I'm going to jump around because there might be some, one session I might like just focus on faces and then pull up people's work, maybe 2 or 3 portfolios that have different issues with faces, and kind of focus on that. So it's not really about a service where I'm going to look at each portfolio members. It's about an overall thing. And so I have to, I will streamline this or fine tune it as I go. Again, I might do a sub-only chat or set up Discord so that people can actually speak and I can hear them ask questions or something, to make this as instructive and positive experience as possible. Homer here. Jim, it is hard to make money with art. Yes, I think it's hard to make money with anything. That's something that is a life lesson, as they say. Crispy egg roll is a bastard. Can we make that a? Can we make that a? What am I trying to say? A Nightbot, whatever those things are called, command. Anyway, it would be like exclamation point. Who is crispy egg roll? Crispy egg roll is a bastard. Oh, Mason's on. Disregard that. Am I going to Big Apple Comic Con next year? I do not think so. Next year, thank you, Rescue Whale, for subbing. Next year, I've got MegaCon of Orlando, which is Memorial Day weekend. Boston Comic Con, which is I think around August 10th or so. San Diego Comic Con, New York Comic Con, WonderCon. Those are the ones I am committed to for sure. I've talked about a couple European shows and maybe one over in Asia as well. Try to do like 6 or 7 shows at max. All right, so let's see, what else can I focus on here? I'm gonna do one other element because I did start late, and I'm gonna focus on this, which is, we've got Killer Croc. This is page 4. So 3, we have this. I think there are a couple quick things I would add. I mean, aside from the thwip here and the cable going here, and I would probably have braided this cable. All right, to differentiate it from, and I will go ahead and probably put some fingers in there to establish it's a hand. Right. Okay, so we have that. So a Batman on top of, what I would have done here is, you have the, Michael, you're using the camera a lot straight on, which I think is a very common thing amongst people that are just kind of building portfolios. You want to move the camera up and down for full dramatic effect. When you move the camera down, you get these very kind of ominous, dramatic, kind of sinister, right? Like, right? So if you look at a lot of gangsta rap album covers or photos, they're always, they got their nose up. And it's basically literally saying I'm like taller and looking down on you, and it conveys, it suggests intimidation. It suggests a bit of aggression. If you have a down shot where the camera's above, it helps create an established location environment, very clear storytelling. So we use that to basically place objects in a room so we know where all the different elements are, where the heroes are, the villains, the backgrounds, the vehicles, stuff like that. And it also creates feelings of alienation and isolation when the camera is up high, when you have a shot of a person kind of walking down a street and the road literally goes towards nowhere and the camera is up here. You get a sense that they're walking their own path, that they are on their own. So there are emotional cues or emotional triggers that you create by moving the camera around. There's actually a scene in Hush where we first see Hush and he's like looking over the top of the building down at Batman and Commissioner Gordon, and the Joker who Batman has just defeated and decided not to kill. And I went with the down shot, or maybe Jeff wrote in that it was a down shot, because it creates this feeling of superiority, that Hush is above all these players, that he's almost like a god with these puppet strings on the figures below him, like they're little toys on the stage in front of him. But it also separated him emotionally from what was going on down on the ground level. That there was something happening up here, and then there was this sort of cathartic scene that happened between Commissioner Gordon and Batman down here. So it's really important where the camera is and how to use it to create, sort of pull as much emotion out of the scene. So in this particular shot, we've got Killer Croc, and I think he's being electrocuted because there'll be a zap like this. But I would probably want to see a little more agony in his body when you get zapped. Yes, you tighten up, but I would imagine that your back arches a little bit, that your jaw goes up, and again, the camera's straight on and it's at eye level. I would either move the camera down or up, either or, move it sideways, do a 3/4, arch the back, and maybe you go in and do something like this where, you've already established that this hand, has been captured, or the cable has kind of gone over that. You arch that kind of center chest, and then you have, right? You want to establish that pain. This other hand here, right? You got a nipple. This is that for crispy. The rib cage goes like this. All right, so the shadows of the ribs are here. Here's the back of that hand. Wow, drawing straight on the drawing. I meant to create a layer. Sorry. All right. There's the pec there, the other pec, rib cage, stomach muscles, other shoulder, bicep, forearm here, shadow of that thumb, fingers, get the zap. Okay. Okay. Put some emotion into it. Imagine yourself getting electrocuted. Hold that pose, kind of mentally make a picture of it, and then try to convey it and draw it onto the page itself. So I've already got establishing that kind of arch to the back, maybe spittle coming out because it's quite painful. Okay. Then here you've got Batman for the first time on Killer Croc, and Batman to me is a bully. He's an intimidator, so he'd want to get right up in Killer Croc's face and say, basically, I got you, he looks very kind of calm the way you've done it, Michael, and it's clear, but I feel like you could get a lot more emotion out of it, and maybe even do maybe a 3/4 angle. Again, move the camera around so we're not looking straight at the action, and maybe you change the angle so that the debris is on the floor. It's always good to have kind of to be able to see their face. I wish I could see Killer Croc's face a little bit. Okay, so here's his shoulder. Here's a debris pillow, so we can prop up his face. Again, everything that we draw, we can make happen. I mean, we're the ones creating everything. So if I need his face, if Killer Croc's head to be up a little bit, I'll put a piece of debris behind it, literally like a pillow, to prop it up so that it can basically establish this kind of face where he's basically kind of, hold on a second, where we kind of established that he is that have been kind of fried by electricity. Okay, and now Batman looms over like a gargoyle, right? Like this. Right, that's the kind of the emotional shape, the ghoulish kind of intimidation here. And to help sell that it's an upshot, we've got this debris in the foreground, but then maybe you have ceiling tiles at the top. And they're ceiling tiles because we can see like the water sprinkler system, and maybe have lights here, the fluorescent lights, the rest of your bank building over here. And Batman's great because you can just basically make him a black shape. Okay. Okay, like this. Put debris here. Let's kill a Croc's shoulder. Show skin textures. And there's like kind of smoke. We've already established that. We can actually zoom in a little here, Michael, because we already, in the previous page, we'll establish what you have established, that Batman is leaping forward and jumping on top of Killer Croc. We established that we are still in the bank with these elements back here. So the camera, we can afford to kind of zoom in a little bit to capture the drama of this, right? The drama of these characters kind of Batman being this kind of intimidator type. Okay. Okay. And then when you get to here, you can actually do the last panel. Because we've established everything at this point, you can actually just have done literally well, that looks like he's hanging. So, all right, let's do that. Batman Savage AF, right? Like, ooh. right? And then done the rest of it. You can have the security guard here, kind of getting up off his feet, debris here, counter there. You could have done this whole last scene in silhouette for the most part, which would be a nice kind of visual coda to this entire scene. That's the security guard. Other people that were inside the, right? So there you have it. Okay. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Anyway. All right. So I think that's it. I want to say that an hour felt a little short, so in the future I'll probably an hour and a half, 2 hours probably would be a little too long. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. We got 250 people. Cool. Pretty good turnout. So if you guys have any other comments and feedback, what worked, what didn't work for you guys, Michael, if you have anything you'd want to suggest being the person that was being critiqued, if it was too harsh, you can let me know. You're a bastard, Jim. That usually gets the message across. And we'll continue to do this, and hopefully you guys will pick up on some useful hints and be able to apply them to your own work. Okay. Okay, Crispy, I'll reserve that for you. All right, so thank you, Michael, and I think Brittany's going to get on later today and do some Overwatch if you guys are into that, and then tomorrow morning I'll do some live sketching as well. All right, so thanks for tuning in. Thank Kate as ever, and I'll catch you guys later.